Chapter 8 of Christie's what am I talking about? Of Claudia and the phantom phone calls now commences. And it's a Stacy chapter this time. We have a computerized approximation of Stacy's handwriting to let us know. Stacy dots her eyes with hearts. I'm blanking on whether we got a Stacy chapter in book 1, but we get one now. And if this is our introduction to Stacy's point of view, I don't know too many people who would identify Stacy as their favorite babysitter, but it's not because Stacy isn't amazing. Stacy's just like a little less overt in her personality than our first two narrators, and she'll be book 3's narrator, so we can see what delights she has in store for us then. But we'll get a little preview right now. Saturday, October 25th. Last night I sat for Charlotte Johansson, which is going to be very confusing because there is now a famous person named Scarlett Johansson, and it's going to be very tempting to say Scarlett Johansson every time I see Charlotte Johansson. But last night, Stacy babysat not for the celebrity Scarlett Johansson, but for the fictional child Charlotte Johansson. She's a nice little kid, an only child, and absolutely no problem. In fact, she's kind of timid and shy, which bothers me sometimes. It makes me feel like I have to be brave and protective when I'm around her, and sometimes I don't feel brave at all. Like last night, I was already worried about the phantom phone calls. I mean, after the experiences Christy and Claudia have had, who wouldn't be? So when the storm came, I nearly fell apart. Luckily though, I'm a good babysitter, and when you're a good babysitter, babysitting comes first, so somehow I managed to keep my head. Stacy has been in therapy. It's clear. I can't wait to get to Stacy's book. If that's what Stacy calls keeping her head, I wouldn't want to see her lose it. Well, Claudia seems so down on Stacy this whole book long, but maybe it's because of something that happens later. I'm not sure. We'll find out together. Stacy left for the Johanssons after an early supper. She was going to be sitting until 10, the latest she's allowed out. If you cut through Stacy's backyard and turn right, the Johanssons' house is just 2 doors down, a 3-minute walk. If you use the streets and go around the long way, it takes about 10 minutes. Stacy used the shortcut, even though the night seemed darker than usual and she had to carry a flashlight. Mr. Johansson met her at the front door. His wife is hardly ever around. She's a doctor and spends a lot of time at Stony Brook General Hospital. "Hi, Stacy," he greeted her. "I'm glad you could come. I'll be meeting Dr. Johansson at the theater. The number is there by the phone. We're going to see an early movie and then have a bite to eat at Renwick's. That number is posted too. I know you need to be home by 10. Charlotte has finished her dinner and she ought to be in bed by 9:30. Okay?" Stacy nodded. "I guess you know everything else." Stacy nodded again and smiled as Charlotte came into the kitchen. "Charlotte and I will have lots of fun, won't we?" "Yes," replied Charlotte uncertainly. "Daddy, do you have to go?" Charlotte is a shy child. I believe the relationship between Charlotte and Stacy is at the emotional core of book 3, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Johansson put his arm around Charlotte. "Mommy and I have been looking forward to this movie. It's called 9.5 Weeks. Or, I don't know, some movie that the adults liked that came out in 1986. It's a treat for us, but you'll have a treat when you wake up tomorrow." "What?" asked Charlotte excitedly. Mommy will be here, and she's not working this weekend. Goody! Now, all the time Stacy and Charlotte and Mr. Johansson were talking, Stacy had been noticing something. There were expensive jewels all over the house. Not really, no. Stacy had noticed that if the evening had seemed dark on her way over to the Johanssons, it was positively pitch black just 10 minutes later. And it was only 6:30. It seemed rather windy, too. The branches of the trees, already half bare, were being tossed back and forth. Stacy thought she heard thunder in the distance, but she tried not to worry about it. We'd had a lot of late-season storms, and most of them didn't last too long. Mr. Johansson left a few minutes later, taking an umbrella with him. Stacy and Charlotte stood at the front window and watched his car back slowly down the driveway and turn onto the street. And just as the headlights disappeared from view, the rain began. Came pouring down in great sheets, as if someone had overturned a huge pail of water in the sky. "Close all the windows," cried Charlotte. "Turn on all the lights," cried Stacy, already terrified, but keeping her cool thus far. Stacy and Charlotte ran pell-mell through the house, closing windows. There weren't many open, it being late October, and turning on lights. "What do you want to do now?" asked Stacy breathlessly when they were finished. "Watch TV," replied Charlotte. "Fair enough, Charlotte." Crash! A huge clap of thunder sounded, and Charlotte raced to Stacy's side. "I hate thunder," she confessed. Or perhaps confided would be a more appropriate word, but confessed, I guess, works too. "You too?" asked Stacy. "I kind of like thunder, but that's just me." "You know what I used to do during a thunderstorm?" Stacy continued. "What?" "I used to hide in the linen closet. It was the smallest closet in our apartment in New York City. I'd run in, slide under the bottom shelf, and close the door after me, pulling it from the bottom. Sometimes I'd take my doll with me." Charlotte giggled. "Once," she said, "I hid under my bed during a storm. The storm lasted so long I fell asleep, and Mommy and Daddy didn't know where I was. They almost called the police." That sounds like a terrifying experience for parents to have. But I do want to go back and note, I don't know why, but this paragraph about Stacy hiding in the linen closet in New York City, that to me sounds like something that the author herself may have done as a child. There's something about the detail, "sometimes I'd take my doll with me," that like feels like the way writing a memory. It's just got that flavor. I don't know. I really like it. Crash! Ba-boom! More thunder. Lightning flashed and zigzagged through the sky. "Quick, let's put on the TV," said Stacy. She and Charlotte ran into the family room. Charlotte flicked on the TV, and Stacy found the remote control. They started switching from channel to channel. They found an interview, a cooking show with Julia Child, and 2 news programs, Unsolved Mysteries and A Current Affair. "Boring," said Stacy, but she really meant scary about Unsolved Mysteries, because that shit was scary sometimes, man. The promos for that show scared me as a young child. "Let's put on MTV," Stacy suggested. "At least we could hear some good music, such as Huey Lewis and the News." "Why can't I find the channel?" Mommy and Daddy block things I'm not old enough to watch, said Charlotte. Rats, said Stacy. She went back to the remote control. I'm not sure whether that's an addition. There's a whole rigmarole in here where Charlotte doesn't know what MTD is, but I'm skipping over that because that's clearly added in after the original publication date of these books, and we try to avoid such unpleasantnesses here. Flick, 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 boring, 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 said Stacy. Double rats, said Charlotte, which I bet is something she heard Stacy say and is now copying her out of a sincere homage. Hey, said Stacy, here's something. She had turned into Channel 47. A large ghostly hand was walking around in a cemetery all by itself. At the top of the screen were the words, Spook Theater, although this sounds awfully like the Addams Family to me, and under them, watch at your own risk. Ooh, spooky, said Charlotte. She edged closer to Stacy on the couch. Shall we try it? Asked Stacy. It's better than anything else that's on. This seems like a dubious decision on Stacy's behalf to watch a spooky spook show, a scary show when they're already scared. But drama is drama. Sometimes you gotta just stack that deck and stretch your reader's suspension of disbelief a little. I bet it will pay off with the comical shenanigans to come. Stacy and Charlotte watched a commercial that showed a can of cleanser dancing around a bathroom. And then Spook Theater appeared on the screen again, and finally, the movie began. It started with a nighttime shot of a huge, gloomy mansion sitting alone on a rise of land. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Kind of like our weather, Charlotte remarked, as a clap of real thunder sounded outside, followed by a streak of lightning. The lamps flickered around them. Charlotte moved as close to Stacy as she could without sitting in her lap. Stacy put her arm around her. They looked at each other and giggled. I have goosebumps, exclaimed Charlotte. I think I was getting a wrong read of Charlotte before. I thought she was sort of like a, serious fraidy cat type of kid, but I think she's more just like a normal child. But hey, what's normal? Am I correct? To the audience of 2020? On the television, the scene changed to a bedroom inside the mansion. It was lit only by 2 candles. A young woman with long dark hair glided into the room. She was wearing a white dressing gown and carrying another candle. And the title of the movie appeared on the screen. Candle Fest. She walked across the room to a set of French doors that opened on a balcony and began to close them, the wind from the storm making her gown billow softly around her. Just when she had almost pulled the door closed, no update on whether the candle in her hand remains lit. When she had almost pulled the door closed, she gasped and let out a small cry. What? Whispered Charlotte, following along. On the lawn below the woman, Stacy and Charlotte could make out a dark figure. Lenora, wailed the figure, I've come back from beyond the grave. Lenora moaned and dropped her candle. Thunder crashed. Then thunder from the real storm outside crashed even more loudly. For a moment, the room Stacy and Charlotte were in seemed to glow brightly, and a second later it was plunged into the black depths of hell's deepest darkness. The girls screamed. Charlotte clutched Stacy. Everything had gone off. The lights, the TV, all the electricity. It was so quiet they could hear their own hearts pounding, but worse than the silence was the utter darkness. Power failure, whispered Stacy. I want my mommy, murmured Charlotte, or my daddy. I'm not picky. Stacy tried to pull herself together. There's really nothing to be afraid of, she told Charlotte. So the electricity went off. So what? The Pilgrims lived their whole lives without electricity, and their lives were completely amazing. The Pilgrims' lives sucked. The Pilgrims' lives sucked, and the Pilgrims themselves were not the coolest band of people either. Sorry, I thought I saw a cockroach. Not the ghost of the angry pilgrim. But there wasn't a cockroach. The end. You should be in New York when there's a power failure. The entire city practically stops running. We lived on the 17th floor of an apartment building, and when the power went out, so did the elevators. Imagine having to walk up 17 flights of stairs just to get home. Okay, so this is a comical, this is the issue I have with these books, being like half-assedly modified for like contemporary readers. They're not. There's like dumb little changes here and there where they like pretend they don't know what MTV is, but then they'll talk about power outages in New York City as if that's like a common thing. The last widespread power failure in New York was in 2002, and I was here, man, and it was 2003. It was actually one of the most life-affirming experiences of my entire life. It was a trip. It was actually incredibly chill. So yeah, haven't had one of those in a while, and to act like it's just like, oh, you know, New York City and those power outages that happen there, the entire city practically stops running. No big thing. That's like something that happened in the 70s commonly. This is Anna Martin betraying that she probably hung out in New York a bit as a young Smithy in the 70s. That must have been fucking cool. Anyway, Stacy went on, feeling a bit better. What we have to do is get some candles, just like in the movie. Like Lenora's, asked Charlotte. Yes. Where do your parents keep them? I don't know. I'm not allowed to light matches. Don't you have any idea? Said Stacy, as uncharacteristically impatiently. Maybe in the chest of drawers in the dining room? Said Charlotte. Good. All right, now we'll just find my flashlight and we can use it to light our way into the dining room. Stacy stood up, holding tightly to Charlotte's hand. They began edging towards the front hall, where Stacy had left her jacket and the flashlight. Shuffle, 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 crash. Ow, yelled Stacy. What? My toe. I walked right into something. Stacy felt around. A table, I think. Okay, let's keep going. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Stacy. What, Charlotte? Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. I hear something. What? I don't know. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. There it is again. Stop moving. Stacy and Charlotte paused, holding their breath and listening. And then Stacy heard it. A creak. Where's it coming from? She asked. It sounds like the basement, whispered Charlotte. Well, let's make sure the door to the basement is closed. Where is the door to the basement? Right here. Charlotte moved past Stacy, running her hand along the wall. Yeah, it's closed. Okay, good. Be quiet for a sec. The girl stopped and listened again. Creak, creak, squish, creak, squish, creak, squish. I would be fucking terrified if I were either of these people. In the dark, Charlotte's hand found Stacy's. She held on tight. Creak, squish, creak, squish. Something's coming up the stairs, cried Charlotte softly. Shh, was all Stacy said, but she told me later that what she was thinking was, oh my fucking god, it's the Phantom of the Opera! Or the Phantom of the phone calls. He turned off the electricity to distract us, and now he's sneaking into the Johanses' house through the basement, and this is exactly what I would be thinking too. Sweet listeners, my worrying heart would be making up that exact same story. Creak, squish, the sound was closer. It had almost reached the top of the stairs. Stacy was just about to tell Charlotte to get the fuck out of there when the creaking stopped, and it was followed by a woof. Stacy jumped about a foot into the air, but Charlotte exclaimed, "Carrot! Oh, it's just Carrot. He must have come in through the basement again. There's a broken window down there." "Who's Carrot?" said Stacy, although she had already pieced together in her mind that it had to be a dog that she was not aware of the existence of. "But Jesus Christ, Johansson's, you're not going to tell your babysitter that you own a goddamn dog? Let's find out what's going on there." "Our Schnauzer is who Carrot is," said Charlotte. "He must be sopping wet. I'll try to find a towel so we can dry him off." And at that moment the lights came back on. Stacy and Charlotte looked at each other and began to giggle, as you do when tension is resolved. Then they did dry off the poor rain-drenched Carrot, and they even watched some more of Spook Theater. Outside, the storm died down and the rest of the evening was peaceful. The phone didn't ring once while Stacy was at the Johanssons. And that concludes Chapter 8. Let me assure you, Chapter 9 is on the horizon. It's a Marianne chapter, so you have that to look forward to. Next time, when I read to you from Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls by Anna Martin.